So UFC Fight Night Tatsuro Taira versus Hyunsung Park is taking place this weekend, and overall, there are some sleeper fights on this card, alright? There's a couple of failed prospects that are back to show that they still got it. There's a couple unks on the card, a couple old heads, a couple of people right outside the rankings, but this is an Apex card. There's no standout name that makes you go, wow, this is such a great card, but for an Apex card, it's a pretty good Apex card. So Tony Has Died, will be breaking down Tatsuro Taira versus Hyunsung Park. Let's get straight into it with the first fight on the card, which is Austin Bashy versus John Yanis. Now, if you guys remember who Austin Bashy is, he was actually somebody in the UFC. He was on Dana White's Contender Series. He had a bunch of really big wins. He's a young prospect, 23 years old, right? And he got fraud checked by the fraud checker C-Rod. If you're an undefeated UFC fighter, don't fight Christian Rodriguez because you're going to lose to him every single time. Coming in against him is a guy named John Yanis. John Yanis, this is his debut. He's on a 3-fight win streak. I think he fought in, it was Cage Fury, but I'm going to be picking Austin Bashy to win this fight, and here's why. Austin Bashy, he had some trouble getting the takedowns against C-Rod, and ultimately his striking was pretty weak. But this guy, John Yanis, he doesn't have the best takedown defense. He got taken down in the last couple of his fights, and he had a loss 4 fights ago, and he lost by submission. And Austin Bashy, he's one of the best young submission artists coming up in the UFC. So this will be Austin Bashy's second fight. I think he just got a rough debut against C-Rod. C-Rod's the destroyer of the prospects or whatever. So I think that Austin Bashy will be able to get his takedowns in this fight. I think he'll be able to take John Yanis to a decision. He might sub him in the first round, but I think Bashy should clearly win this fight. The next fight on the card is Pierre Rodriguez versus Caitlyn Sosa. I'm going to be going with Pierre Rodriguez, and here's why. I just think that Pierre Rodriguez is a better MMA fighter. Listen, bro, I haven't watched any of these fights, all right? But I'm looking at Tapology right now. She has a win over Jensen Knudsen, who was pretty sure 8-0 when she fought her, so she fraud checked someone in her last fight. She has a loss by disqualification, and she actually got submitted by Jillian Robertson. But there's no shame in losing to Jillian Robertson. She's a good submission grappler, especially for the women's divisions. On the other hand, we have Caitlyn Sosa, who just lost to Angela Hill in her last fight. And I just don't like Angela Hill. She has some wins that she should have, she has a couple of robberies that should have gone her way on her record. But overall, she's like the Neil Magny of the women's weight classes, not because she looks like Neil Magny, but because she wins and loses and wins and loses. She's super active. I don't think losing to Angela Hill is a good look for Caitlyn Sosa. So I'm going to be picking Pierre Rodriguez to win this fight. Oh, what the fuck? Oh, there we go. All right, so the next fight on the card is Raphael Estam versus Felipe Burns. This is the most Apex fight you could ever get. We got a guy that's 13-0 versus a guy right here who is 14-7. This is literally the definition of the Apex, right? But yeah, I'm going to be having to pick Estam to win this fight, and here's why. I just think that Felipe Burns has lost to anybody he's fought that has talent. I mean, he lost to Joshua Van. He lost to Formiga. I know it's his third fight in the UFC or whatever, but having a record of 14-7, should you really even be signed in the first place, We got Raphael Estam on the other hand, right? This is also his third fight in the UFC, but he's won every single one of them. Got a finish on Dana White's Contender Series and then 2 decisions, even beating the legendary Charles Johnson, who beat Joshua Van, man. So it really just shows levels in this fight. So, I mean, I know I'm just saying, the Charles Johnson fight was not a fluke, but if you pick Charles Johnson to beat Joshua Van again, if they rematched each other, I would pick Joshua Van because I don't think it was a fluke, but I do think that he kind of got lucky. But that's besides the point. the point I'm trying to make is that Estevam, he has beaten all of his UFC opponents. He's undefeated. He's on a tear. And Felipe Bunez, I don't even know if he should be signed to the UFC in the first place. So I'm going to be picking Raphael Estevam to win this fight by decision. The next fight on this card is Rodolfo Vieira versus Tresean Gore. I am going to be picking Tresean Gore to win this fight. Now listen, if I get this wrong, I'm going to look like a fucking idiot. Because Tresean Gore is going to lose this fight. It's going to be by knockout. Because ultimately, I don't think that Tresean Gore is that good of a UFC fighter, alright? I mean, for Christ's sakes, this guy got knocked out by Cody Brundage, alright? But hear me out. Going to a decision with Brian Battle, whether you got your ass kicked or not, that's more impressive than anything Rodolfo Vieira has done. If you watch Tresean Gore in his last fight, he fought Marco Tulio, and he actually was looking pretty good in that fight in some points. Like, he was in that fight, and we all know how good Marco Tulio is as a prospect, right? And you look at Rodolfo Vieira, and he's losing to Andre Petrosky. I mean, he's losing to, you guys know how I feel about Chris Curtis, all right? He's losing to Chris Curtis, clearly losing to him, not split decision, losing to Chris Curtis. He's clearly losing to Chris Curtis, all right? And that's just not something that I like very much. But the main thing for me is stylistically, I think Tresean Gore can just go in there, start swinging heavy early. Vieira is not a stranger to being knocked out. And I honestly think that Tresean Gore was kind of signed a little too early in his career. And he's kind of starting to get a little bit better, you know? So I'm going to be picking... I know this is if I get this pick wrong, everyone's going to be like, how did you pick Tresean Gore? But I really do think Tresean Gore is going to win this fight by knockout, man. I think that he'll find the chin early and put him out. So hopefully I get this one right, but it's going to be a sketchy one, all right? So the next fight on the card is Rena Nakamura versus Nathan Fletcher. Rena Nakamura is kind of similar to Austin Bashy in the sense that they were both wrestlers and they don't really have good striking. Rena Nakamura, he was a super high level wrestler. He was considered one of the best prospects in the UFC, and in his last fight, he just decided not to wrestle at all for some reason, and he ended up losing to Muin Gafarov. That's literally like the layup of all layups is Muin Gafarov. He ended up losing to him. On the other hand, we got Nathan Fletcher, who in his last fight, he lost a split decision to Callan Lauren, who is no longer signed in the UFC, I'm pretty sure. I'm going to be picking Rena Nakamura to win this fight. I think that he learned his lesson, and hopefully he will shoot takedowns in this fight. And if he does shoot takedowns, I do think that he'll be able to get them. I don't like Nathan Fletcher. He's a good fighter, but he hasn't really beaten anybody impressive in the UFC for me to pick him against somebody like Rena, who is coming off a loss, yeah, but it was because of stupid decision making. I think if Rena locks in and does what he's got to do, he can win this fight. So my only question is, there are so many Japanese fighters on this card. Why did they not just do like a fight night in Tokyo or something and put a couple of extra Japanese fighters on the card and go there, you know? So, I mean, you got Rena, you got Tatsuro Taira. I know Hyunsung Park is Korean, but still in the, kind of region, I guess. And I just would have liked to see them go somewhere outside. You know how I feel about the Apex, man. I fucking hate the Apex, but... yeah, let's go to the next fight on the card, which is, look at the quality of this photo I found on Google, huh? This is pretty this is pretty. Look at this shit. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that. All right, listen. This is also one of the Apex fights of all time. This is literally as Apex as you can get. Someone that's 6-2 versus 9-3. Nick Klein versus Andre Puliev. I'm going with Nick Klein in this fight. I don't know why. I just think he lost his debut. It's a pick'em, all right? And unfortunately for him in his debut, he got Mansour Abdul Malik. I still think Nick Klein has a lot of potential versus how do you lose to Chris Leroy Duncan? I'm talking about Pulv losing to Chris Leroy Duncan. Like, it's just, I don't know. I feel like losing to Mansur Abdul, like, we're comparing losses here, right? One got knocked out by Mansur Abdul Malik. The other one got decisioned by Chris Leroy Duncan. But I think it's honestly probably better to just get knocked out by Mansur, because it's like, okay, that's what Mansur does to people, versus you're not like out techniquing Chris Leroy Duncan. Like, you're losing a decision to Chris Leroy Duncan. Like, Chris Leroy Duncan has better technique than you, you know? Like, that's something that kind of concerns me slightly. But yeah, I'm going to be picking Nick Klein to win this fight. Oh. The next fight on the card is Danny Silva versus Kevin Vallejos. And look, we actually have a real poster from the UFC, so you know that this Vallejos kid is good. So I honestly think Vallejos is one of the best prospects in the UFC right now. He has one loss, and it was on the Dana White's Contender Series to Gene Silva, who will probably be fighting for the belt soon. Someone who I predict will have the belt at some point in the future. His only loss is to Gene Silva. It was a 29-28 decision. Besides that, he's gone on to win every single one of his fights by finish, beating Seung-Hoo Choi in his last fight. I think that's how you pronounce his name, but he's just been doing it super impressively in all of his fights. Obviously, I think you have to go with Kevin Vallejos in this fight. The speed, the power, the technique, everything is better than Danny Silva. Danny Silva, he's 10-1, right? His only loss is a controversial decision, but I just still think that Vallejos is him. I think Vallejos is one of the best prospects in the UFC. I think he'll find the chin of Danny Silva early, and honestly, I think this could be a win that ages very well for Vallejos, because Danny Silva's not no joke, man. But I just think that Vallejos is better. So yeah, man, I'm gonna be picking Kevin Vallejos to brutally knock out Danny Silva. The next fight on the card, this is what I thought should have been the co-main event, because Neil Magny literally main evented earlier this year, and now he's the fourth fight on the card. Like, doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but I'm gonna be picking Elizeo. This is one of the hardest names to pronounce, bro. Elizeo dos Santos Zaleski. Whatever you pronounce, however you fucking say his name. I'm gonna be picking him to beat Neil Magny by decision. So, Neil Magny, he has the most wins in UFC welterweight history, but I just think he's on the decline, man. Like, he is. I know that what's his name is older than him technically by like a year or whatever, but I just think that Neil Magny, he's had more fights than EZS, all right? And EZS hasn't taken as much damage as Neil Magny, man. Like, Neil Magny just got knocked out brutally in his last fight. And then he got knocked out by Morales before that. And then he got choked unconscious by... No, he got his legs tore up by Ian Gary. He got choked out by Shavkat. And yeah, he has the win over Mike Mallet. But you look at how that fight was going before. I'm not going to say it was a fluke, but he definitely he didn't get lucky, bro. But, I mean, obviously Mike Mallet gassed out. But I don't think someone like EZS is going to gas out, because he's super experienced. He has some sneaky good wins, man. He's got the win over Sean Strickland. If you remember, it was a spinning wheel kick over Sean Strickland. He's got a win over BSD. And yeah, he lost his last fight to Chidi Njokuani, but Chidi Njokuani is like a beast, man. That guy literally should be a middleweight. He's like the biggest welterweight of all time. I think Neil Magny's like, this could be one of those fights that's like, oh, Neil Magny gets it done. Unk still got it, you know? But I think Neil Magny is done, man. Like, he's just taken so much, like, he's been finished before, and it just keeps getting more brutal and more brutal every single fight. Like, first it's getting choked out, then it's getting decision badly, then it's getting knocked out kind of bad, then it's getting knocked out cold. So I just think Neil Magny has taken too much damage over his career, and I just think he's done, man. Like, I just don't think he'll win. Like, he'll beat the jobbers of the fucking division, but this is a grizzled vet who has shown success in his last couple of fights, and I'm going to be picking EZS to beat Neil Magny, all right? The next fight on the card, this is definitely better than the Magny fight, guys. This is definitely better than the Magny fight, guys. All right, we got Carol Rosa versus Norah Cornoli. I'm going to be picking Norah Cornoli to win this fight. Now, if you ask me why, man, I could go into the gritty details. I can tell you all sorts of things, right? But at the end of the day, man, I don't think that losing a split decision to Jacqueline Cavalcanti is bad. I think Jacqueline Cavalcanti has underrated striking in the women's weight classes, right? But not just that. I do believe that she has a good ground game, and Carol Rosa has shown to struggle on the ground a little bit against Aylin Perez, against Irene Aldana, against Norma Dermott. She doesn't have the best ground game. Cornoli has submissions. As you can tell, I'm kind of bullshitting all of this because I have no idea who either of these people are. I'm just kidding. I know who Norah Cornoli is, but she's on a run, man. I don't know how she's the underdog in this fight. I think that I think she'll get takedowns. I think she'll have some crafty striking on the feet, and I think ultimately she will get the decision. So I'm picking Norah Cornoli to win by decision. The next fight on the card. Is Esteban Ribovic versus Elves Brenner. All right? And listen, I've done a lot of thinking into this one, and I've decided to go with the underdog, Elves Brenner, to win this fight, all right? And here's why. I think that Esteban Ribovic is overrated, man. I don't think he is that good, and it really comes down to the fight at UFC Noche against Daniel Zellhuber, man. Because we all had this expectation that Daniel Zellhuber was going to walk through 43, 45-year-old Michael Johnson, right? Like, Michael Johnson was supposed to stand absolutely no chance against Daniel Zellhuber. And he beat the fuck out of Daniel Zellhuber. And you look at the fight with Ribovic, right? And it's a split decision. Ribovic clearly should have won the fight, and it was a war. But he was hurt bad multiple times in that fight by Zellhuber, and I don't like that, man. I don't think Daniel Zellhuber is a good fighter. Like, I don't even think he's like top 40 lightweight right now. And we have someone in Elves Brenner who has lost to Miktibek Orolbai, who is one of the better prospects in the UFC. You know, I'm not going to glaze him. You know, I like my Miktibek Orolbai, right? This guy's Miktibek Orolbai's son. But Miktibek Orolbai is not someone that you can be like ashamed to lose to. And it was a close fight, man. He had a lot of success in that fight. I'm pretty sure he dropped him in the last round, too, if I'm remembering correctly. But, yeah, Miktibek Orolbai is not a bad fighter by any stretch. And he also lost to Joel Alvarez. And there's no problem. Like, Joel Alvarez should be a welterweight first and foremost. But not just that. He should be ranked right now over BSD and Michael Chandler. Like, if you really look at Joel Alvarez and who he's beaten, he should be a ranked fighter. So the only two losses this guy has had as of recently have been to Orolbai and have been to Joel Alvarez, right? Ribovic doesn't fight like either of them, man. He doesn't have power in his hands. He's kind of slow on the feet. I don't know, man. Like, going to a split decision with Nasrat Hasparat, like, I don't think Nasrat is that good of a fighter, man. And not even 5 fights ago, this guy lost to Loik Radzupov, or whatever, however you fucking say his name, bro. I like Elves Brenner in this fight, bro. He fights out of shoot box, right? And yeah, man, I like Elves Brenner to win this fight because the people that he's lost to, I think they're more high level. I think he's shown a higher level of skill to these opponents that he's fought, and I think the Zellhuber fight has really just left a disgusting taste in my mouth because we know how bad Zellhuber is now, and you're going to a close decision with him, you know? So, yeah, man, I'm going to be picking good old Elves Brenner to win this fight, all right? The next fight on the card is Chris Duncan versus Matteas Rebecki. I'm going to be picking Matteas Rebecki to sleep Chris Duncan. They're both really good fighters. Rebecki beat Orolbai. He beat my goat Orolbai, no. But that was an absolute dog fight. that he had against Oilby, and I think fights like that make fighters better. You know, that was like his first real war where he got like thrown into super deep waters and he came out on top, and that only can make you better, right? Rebecki has been constantly improving, even though he lost to Carlos Diego Ferreira like 2 fights ago. Carlos Diego Ferreira, he's been around the UFC for a while, and there's no shame in losing to him, man. Like, that guy, he's been around for a while. He's been around, he's still fighting, and he's pretty sure he was in the WEC, if I remember correctly. But, yeah, man, Chris Duncan, he beat Jordan Vucinic in his last fight, kind of fraud-checked him. Beat Balaji Oki by submission as well, so there is a very real possibility that Chris Duncan can go out here and just get a submission on Rebecki early, but I don't think it's going to happen. I think Rebecki, he'll weather the early storm of Chris Duncan, and he'll eventually find the knockout because he does have power in his hands. He has the ability to damage people. I like Rebecki in this fight. It could go either way, but I'm picking Matteas Rebecki, right? And the main event of the evening, we have Tatsuro Taira versus Hyunsung Park. Now, originally, this was supposed to be Tatsuro Taira versus not Brandon Roy, what the fuck am I talking about? This was originally supposed to be Tatsuro Taira versus Amir Albazi, right? But Albazi had some medical issues. He seems to always be fucking shit up, bro. I don't really know exactly what happened, but he pulled out of the fight, and they've made this on short notice. This is Hyunsung Park's second fight in the UFC. I don't think that Tatsuro Taira is going to be able to finish him. I think that Hyunsung Park, he is one of the better prospects. You know, we have to talk about the Asian takeover of flyweight. These like Joshua Van, Taira, Hyunsung Park. We got a bunch of damn Asians coming up in the ranks. And he is one of them, man. He is really good, and he is super talented, but I just think that this is too much of a step up too early, and it's on short notice, man. Like, you know, I never pick the people on short notice because Tatsuro Taira, he has had a full training camp for this event. Hyunsung Park, I think he was training to fight Steve Erceg in 2 weeks. So I guess he was in a different camp, but that's a completely different type of opponent. You know, like, he is training to fight a striker. Tatsuro Taira, he is a grappler. He is going to be going to the ground. And you could say that he didn't look very good on the feet in the Royval fight, which he didn't. But I think that his experience advantage over Hyunsung Park, I think he's going to be able to take him down, hold him there, beat him up on the ground a little bit. I don't know if he'll get the submission or the knockout, but I think that he'll just this kind of reminds me of, if you guys remember, Robert Whittaker versus the guy who got knocked out by Chimaev. What is his name? He is a Dagestani. Ikram. This kind of reminds me of Robert Whittaker versus Ikram Aliskerov, where we got a guy in the top 5. He's preparing to fight a super hard grappling opponent. He's got a full camp. They bring in another guy short notice. And I just don't like this for Hyunsung Park, man. Like, I wish, you know, it's his 3rd fight in the UFC, and he's get the final boss, like, straight to Taira. Taira, he's like 6-1 in the UFC, and his one loss is a split decision. Now, I don't think it should have ever been a split decision. I think he very clearly lost that fight, and there's not really an argument that you can make for Taira beating Royval. I mean, the rounds that Royval won, he beat the fuck out of Taira, you know? So, even though Taira got some grappling off or whatever, it's really control time over damage. And what I'm trying to get at is that Royval clearly won, and I think Hyunsung Park, he's really good on the feet. He has power, and maybe he can emulate some of the stuff that Brandon Royval did, but this is his first 5-round fight. Taira's been in the fire before, and honestly, the fight with Royval, it's only going to make him better, man. Like, gaining that experience of a 5-round main event, and you're fighting someone who's never fought 5 rounds before, it's daunting for Hyunsung Park for sure. So yeah, I think Hyunsung Park is good enough to not get finished in this fight, but I don't think he's good enough to win it because it's just, honestly, it's too much of a step up too early. So I like Tatsuro Taira to win this fight. by decision. I really wish that they just kind of made Neil Magny the main event or something and rescheduled the Amir Albazi fight. So overall, here are my picks for the card, right? I'm going Taira by decision. I'm going Rebecki by KO. I'm going Brenner by decision. Cornoli by decision. Zaleski by decision. Vallejo by KO. Klein by decision. Nakamura by decision. Gore by KO. Estam by decision. Rodriguez by decision. And Bashy by decision. So, yeah, man, those are my picks for Taira versus Hyunsung Park. If you like the video, like, subscribe, do all that YouTube shit. And thank you guys so much for watching me and supporting me. It means so much. I love this community. I love the MMA community. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.